Burning Oak Studios has partnered with Artsee magazine to bring you exclusive coverage of the arts.
Hello and welcome to Artsee Live. I'm your host, Benjamin Farrell. Very excited today to be in Chapel Hill, North Carolina at the Ackland Art Museum. Today we have a special guest who's going to be giving us a tour of the museum. His name is Peter Nisbet, and he is the Chief Curator of the Ackland Art Museum. Peter, thank you for being with us today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So, can you please tell us just a little bit about our Carolina Collects display that you have at the museum?
Absolutely. This is a very special exhibition for the Ackland, which I started to work on 2 years ago when I arrived. It had already been in discussion, this idea of an exhibition of art collected by alumni of the university, but I was happy to take it on and really pursue it as an exciting project, which has evolved over the 2 years, and I think has turned into something really extraordinary for the Ackland and Chapel Hill and the region as a whole.
Well, no doubt Chapel Hill has a great tradition of alumni and legacy with the people participating. How is it that you came to create this collection where the alumni were donating pieces for this?
Well, they're not actually donating. I have to be careful with that. They have lent the pictures. Now, if any of them decide that their pictures and sculptures look so wonderful here that they should stay here permanently, I would not say no. But it is a loan exhibition which has three goals, really. One is just to bring some extraordinary art to Chapel Hill. And as we will see when we go around, there are some astonishing pieces here. It was also an attempt to create an exhibition that tells part of the story of modern and contemporary art with some outstanding examples. It's an exhibition that I hope hangs together as a narrative and as an experience for people, even people who, and there may be some, I confess, who don't care about Carolina. I don't know any personally, but it's got to be a show that has its own coherence. And the third idea was to really look at what Carolina alums have done in the visual arts in terms of this very intense personal engagement with a work of art that comes through having it in your home and essentially living with it. And what they might have learned here at Carolina that encouraged them to have that relationship to art, and how we can also use this exhibition to encourage the next generation amongst Carolina students and our public to consider this wonderful experience of living long-term with a work of art. So it's an exhibition with multiple goals, and I hope you'll agree with me by the end of the tour that we have succeeded in all of them.
Well, would you like to take a look at some of it now?
Absolutely, let's do that.
All right, well, join us and we'll take a look at some of the work. Well, Peter, here we are in front of Claude Monet, and a great example. Can you tell us a little bit about this piece?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to do an exhibition about modern and contemporary art, there's no better place than Impressionism, which in many people's understanding of the history of modern art, this is where it all begins. This is the revolution that begins modern art. And this is a classic Monet, 1877, of a suburban scene in Paris, flowers, the sailboats, the pleasures of middle-class life in Paris, not a grand historical theme, not a religious painting, but a painting of everyday life for the middle class in Paris, in France in the late 19th century. So we're very, very happy to have this painting. I never thought we would find a Monet amongst the alumni collections. This painting belongs to a private collector in New York City. When I was talking with him about contributing to Carolina Collects, he said to me, "Peter, this is such an important project. I want the show to be a success. And I would like to lend you a major piece that I just acquired." So this painting is actually a very new acquisition for the private collector, and I'm not going to say it hasn't been seen before, but this is in many ways its first presentation to the public in a long time. So the exhibition has a lot of surprises like that, which we're very, very happy about.
How many overall alumni have donated from?
We have loans from 50 alumni. If you count couples as 2, then it's up to 60. So people who studied here. And I made a couple of rules at the beginning of the show that I think help, and if I mention what they are, they'll help people enjoy the exhibition. I said to myself, only one work by any one artist. So if we came across 2 Monets or 3 Picassos or whatever it might be, I gave myself the task of choosing just one. So the exhibition didn't tilt in favor of any one artist in that way. So what we've ended up with is a very rich, diverse group of objects with something for everybody, in a sense. Paintings, sculptures, drawings, prints, and photographs. My other rule was that from any one collection, no more than 3 to 4 works, because there were some collections where I could have done a whole exhibition from that collection. But I wanted there to be a range of voices, a range of aesthetic tastes, a range of interests present in an exhibition, after all, that covers 150 years. And from alumni who span time at Carolina from the 1940s to the 1990s. So it really is, from that perspective, quite a rich and diverse exhibition. Well, this is a painting. We've now jumped almost 100 years. We have passed around a very large part of the exhibition. But it allows me to mention one thing about the show that I do like to impress upon people, which is, if you're coming to this exhibition, or indeed any exhibition, always look at where things are hanging, what they're juxtaposed to, how the works are arranged, because the curators put a lot of effort into making works have a dialogue with each other, have a conversation in a way that enhances them. So it's not just about individual masterpiece, but it's about the sequence and the juxtapositions. So with this 1967 painting by the American abstract expressionist Joan Mitchell, a very, very powerful painting, I think. It hangs close to the Monet because it was painted right after Joan Mitchell, who'd moved to Paris a little bit before, moved to a town that Monet had lived in, and clearly was looking at Monet landscapes, at Impressionism, translating some of that intense engagement with nature into a modern or more contemporary language in this very, very powerful, emotional, it is a landscape in effect, I think, and it doesn't take long as you look at it to see it as an immersion in a natural environment where the painting is about organic forces and growth and greenery and light and those sorts of energies that come out of nature, investigations that were really begun 100 years earlier by the Impressionists.
So here we are with an example of the small sculpture that you just mentioned. Can you tell us about this?
Absolutely, Ben. This is, we've now jumped back about 10 years to 1957. This is a sculpture by David Smith, who is probably the greatest American sculptor of the 20th century. A sculptor who worked in metal, essentially, in welded metal. This is a cast metal, in fact, a bit unusual for him, but he really brought to the fore the expressive possibilities of industrial materials. He's a modern sculptor, not just by making what amounts to an abstract sculpture, where the voids, the empty spaces, are as important as the solid spaces. He's a modern sculptor also in his medium, in using steel and iron in ways that are very expressive, but then also lyrical. There is a gentleness to this particular David Smith. There's a grace to it, almost a compositional elegance that we hope to bring out. And this comes back to the idea of juxtaposing works. I hope anybody who's looking at this sculpture will have seen this painting just before it by Richard Diebenkorn, a West Coast artist, an early painting by him, influenced by Picasso, on his way towards abstraction that is in his most famous series of paintings called Ocean Park, which really capture the West Coast light and that feeling of openness. But here, I think the eye can travel from the forms of the Diebenkorn to the forms of the Smith, that by looking from one to the other, and we're not talking about influence here, I'm not saying that David Smith looked at this painting, I'm saying that we as viewers have our attention drawn to certain aspects of the Diebenkorn by having seen the Smith, and the other way around, that there is a dialogue about balance and form that comes out through those juxtapositions.
Thank you. Well, let's move ahead. Right here we have into the next row.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, Peter, this is a 1961 Peter Lichtenstein. Can you tell us about this?
This Roy Lichtenstein painting is one of the great pictures actually in the exhibition, and I was so grateful to its owner that she would lend it. She is an important Chicago collector. And she said to me, Peter, my heart belongs in two places, in Chapel Hill and Chicago, and I would only lend it to those places. So we are thrilled to have this Lichtenstein 1961 painting hanging at the entrance to the gallery after the one we were just seeing, where we talked a lot about abstract expressionism and the brushstroke and the energy of the lines and the personal expression. Here you see the beginning of essentially pop art. Right? Pop art, Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, using imagery from cartoons or Campbell soup cans, whatever it is, everyday life. No longer paintings about nature or the soul. A painting in this case about sneakers. And what could be more exciting than coming into a gallery and getting this kick in the face from Roy Lichtenstein's wonderful painting based on an advertisement for sneakers, based on a 1961 newspaper advertisement, introducing the modern era of pop art and everything that happens after that. This is a painting by an English artist, Howard Hodgkin. Again, not very well known. Maybe in the United States we have a wonderful mix of great names, the Picasso, Joan Mitchell, David Smith, the Roy Lichtenstein, and names that should be better known in the United States, but maybe aren't. A Howard Hodgkin painting from 1972. Hodgkin is a painter who, well, what to say about him? It's interesting. He's an artist who collects Indian miniatures. It's Asian Indian miniatures. And I think once I've said that, you begin to see how that interest in intense color that is so characteristic of Indian culture in the Indian continent comes through even in a much larger scale picture like this. It's going towards abstraction, but not quite there. This is actually called Coming Up from the Beach. And I think once you start looking and you know that title, you see a bit of the ocean, you see maybe some hint of the steps of the railing coming up, maybe some people coming up the steps. But overall, I think it captures that intense summer feeling of freedom, expansiveness that comes through in the abstract form too. So it's a great piece to find.